Good morning and welcome to my hobby bench. Yes, it has been a while since I posted a video. I was on quite a tear there for, oh boy, over 2 months. And there's a lot of reasons for why I've had to take a little break here, and I think a lot of it may have just been burnout. But there's just been so much stuff going on in my life. So today's video is another episode of Tidbits, and those of you that are new to the channel, my series on Tidbits is basically just exactly what that is a video where I try to cram as much information on what's going on in my hobby life as possible and touch on subjects that hopefully I'll get around to elaborating on more in the future if it's necessary or if the subject matter is worth it or not. So the first thing that's been taking up quite a bit of my time lately is this Boca Bearings collaboration. I've been working with Jason, the president of Boca Bearings, and as many of you have seen, I've already produced one video for them. So we're working out some details on some things there, but that's one of the things that I've been working on. And one of the things that I mentioned to Jason that I would offer up as a service to him and the company is that if any of you are out there looking for bearings for your engines and you want to try Boca, or you have tried them and you're frustrated with trying to find some of the bearings on the website, I told him that I would be an ambassador, and anybody that needs to can reach out to me via email, and I can do the very best I can to assist you with finding the proper bearings for your engine, because their website does have some issues, and hopefully that's one of the things that I'm going to be assisting their team with also, is clearing up some of these issues and making them a little more readable and a little more accurate. But if you need some assistance in looking up bearings on their website and you're interested in trying their bearings, because I would highly recommend it. I think they've got an excellent product, and I can go into more detail on that in another video also. Reach out to me and I will do the very best I can to try to find the correct size bearings, or the correct part number bearings and type of bearings for your application, because their website does have some issues as mentioned, and I'll actually touch on that again here shortly later on in this video. So that's one of the things that I've offered to do with Boca. So the next thing is, if you look on the table here, you'll see that I've got several different things here. So I have been doing a lot more customer engines servicing, and one of the things that I felt that was necessary for me to do was upgrade some of my tools. So I bought a new set of Integy, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Integy tools. Now I had purchased this Integy, let's see if it actually says that. Yeah, it does, I-N-T-E-G-Y, Integy, this 5/16 or glow driver, nut driver, a few weeks ago, month or so ago, and I really liked it a lot. So I went ahead and I looked on their eBay site and I purchased another set of ground precision metric hexes, because for many years I've used Bondus L wrenches, and Bondus wrenches for the most part are pretty good, but I've got one here that the ball is broken off of, and I've got others here that are older that I've cut down and they're bending, and their ends are not as hardened as I would like. I tend to see that these things are rounding out over time, and it's time for something additional, not new or a replacement, just additional, because the L-shaped wrench is very important, but for many applications and loosening things. But I think I'm going to just start using these ground drivers a lot more, and these are very lightweight. They got a good grip, they got a nice feel to them. So I'll be using these quite extensively here in the future, and you'll be seeing that. So I got a set of 6 here, and the smallest one that actually came in this set was a 0.09 millimeter, and quite honestly, I don't know, I thought that thing looked like the tip was bent. That is so small that it's actually smaller than anything that I'll ever use. I think the smallest one that I'll ever really use is this 1.5 millimeter here. I think that's typically about the size of the screws that would be in here if this high-speed needle actually had that in there. So anyway, tools, upgrading tools. these look nice. I can't wait to use them. I got a lot of customer engines that are going to require new tools. So that's that thing. So the next thing that we've got on this mat is, you see, two 4-stroke engines. Now these are two eBay 4-strokes that I picked up for under $100 each, and I always like to say to myself, at least, maybe it's part of how I justify things, is that if I can find a 4-stroke engine for under $100, it's worth buying. And for the most part, I've always been right with that. Now, there are some caveats with that. Obviously, I take a lot of really close inspection picture, or I look at the pictures of the engine extensively on eBay, and that's yet another thing I can go into at a later time or a different video if you so desire, is how do I score deals on eBay? What's the methodology? What's the thought process? What do I do? But what I've got here is an engine that's obviously very, very common, and it's the OS48 FS48 Surpass engine. Now this particular one was sold as a parts engine only, but it's complete, and I think the only thing that was really scaring the seller was that it turns over. It does turn over. It just really turns over rough. In fact, I'm having a hard time right now just getting this thing to turn over at all. So there's some internal issues there that I believe that I can resolve. I think it's probably just a bearing issue. The other engine here is an Enya 46 4-cycle engine. Another really common Enya engine. And this is one of those ones that I was going to throw back to the Boca thing. This is my personal engine that I picked up, but yet I've got another one of these Enya 46 4-cycle engines that just came to me as a customer engine, and I'll get into a whole video series on that when the time comes. But this is one of those engines where there were two different variants of this engine made. One was, they call it an early and a later version, I believe. And I don't think that Enya made any kind of distinction. They didn't put like a Mark II or mark any designation. I think the only way you can tell the difference between the early version and the later version is the location of the crankcase vent. Now, both of the ones I've got on hand right now, unfortunately, have this crankcase vent in this location here. Whereas others I've had in the past, the crankcase vent has been located on the bottom here, pointing this way. I believe that that's the only way you can tell the difference visually between the two variants of these engines. The other thing is they both have different bearing sizes. So the other day I was on the Boca website looking up bearings for this engine and potentially the engine, the customer engine, should I need them. And I found over 17 different listings of bearings spanning two different part numbers, and without really any real explanation on the website as to why. I believe that the two different part numbers that I found, and there were like 6 or 7 or 8 variants under each part number, and the variants were like ceramic or high speed or high performance or whatever, so they were just Boca variants, but there were two different part numbers. And I believe it's because they're different. They have different size bearings. Now, to me, I don't believe the bearings here in the crank, in the timing area, are different at all. I think those differences are right here in the front housing. And so that's the thing, is if you contact me and ask me for assistance in looking through the Boca website and getting the right bearings, the other thing you can do that's really going to be important is have your bearings on hand and measure them, because sometimes that's really the only way you can do this, is to measure the bearings. Because with two different part numbers, I wasn't going to just order bearings from their site and say, hey, those will fit, because I'm not going to make sure. I got to make sure. So I'm going to take my engine apart, probably the customer engine apart first. And when I before I order bearings, I have to take measurements just to see, because I have seen, and it may have even applied to this engine, where sometimes you have a mixture of imperial and metric bearings. Sometimes you'll have an imperial in the front and a metric in the rear, or vice versa. So the bottom line here is always, whenever possible, check your bearings with a caliper and measure them to make sure that what you're buying is correct and will fit in your engine. Because the other thing that I've noticed on some of the Boca listings is that you click on the part or the kit number where it goes and it gives you more information on that kit of bearings. Sometimes it'll tell you all the information of the bearings. It'll list the 2 bearings and say, hey, these are metric, and it'll give you the dimensions. Other times it won't. So that's another thing that needs to be cleared up too, because it's those times that it doesn't give you a dimension, you're like, oh, wow, now what do I do? I have the measurements of my bearings, but I don't see what they're saying their bearing measurements are. So I've seen that on a number of occasions also, and that can be problematic. So anyway, that's enough of that particular topic. Now, the final topic is that I have actually sent off a couple of transmitters, a Futaba and a JR transmitter, to Tony at Radio South Incorporated. And I'm going to have him check these things out, give them a clean bill of health, make sure they're operational. And one of them is this right here. It's a JR X347. Now that is going to be probably one or more videos in and of itself, because the reason I got that is a curious reason as to how I got it and why, because I was trying to sell the 8103, I think it was, that transmitter. So it's a long story. And unfortunately, the one thing that I find that's interesting about this JRX 347 transmitter or radio system is that it's pretty rare. It looks like, from my research, it only was produced between 1990 and 1994. And so that's kind of one of the reasons I accidentally picked it up. But it was not functional. It looks like it's a very low time, almost new system, but the batteries had been in there and they corroded and they did a little bit of damage inside the transmitter. So I sent these things to Radio South, hoping that Tony can fix that thing up fairly reasonably of price, because I had to purchase new batteries for both of these systems too, which also obviously was not inexpensive. So the bottom line is the X347 is probably could be in one of the most expensive radios that I've ever purchased in a while, just because of the fact that I don't know how much it's going to cost Tony to get that thing working, if he can get it working. But anyway, that has been my tidbits for today, and there's a lot of stuff here I just jammed into this video. A lot of things happening. The weather is warming up. It's mid-March now, so very, very soon I will be able to do run videos again. So I need to start thinking about getting my stand ready to go and all those things, plus get my motorcycle out of hibernation. So there's a lot going on here. I hope to be putting out some more videos here very soon. But this is one that I felt necessary to get out here very soon, or today, just to give you an update on what all I'm working on. So again, thank you all for watching.